What's up, everybody? Today we're going to look at the candidates for the most improved wizard this season. So we're going to look at each candidate, and you guys are going to judge for yourselves. And again, vote for Friday night. So rock with your boy tonight. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. So again, we're getting into our next award. And looking at the 4 to really 5 candidates, because I'm gonna add a candidate at the end for who was the most improved Washington Wizards player this season. So the candidates are Deni Avdija, who's also in consideration for the most valuable Wizard, Jordan Poole, Marvin Bagley III, Jared Butler, and I'm gonna throw in a fifth candidate. I'm gonna throw in Corey Kispert at the end. So we're definitely gonna I'm gonna give my best case for each candidate who should be the most improved Wizard this season, because all of them have definitely have earned it to a certain degree, but we're going to get into it. So we'll start with Deni Avdija, aka Turbo. And like I said, if you guys checked out my episode for the most valuable Wizard for this season, he was on the list along with Kyle Kuzma and interim head coach Brian Keefe. And like the votes came in, I ain't gonna say nothing, but the votes have clearly dictated what you guys thought. So definitely appreciate you guys, man, for my listeners and watchers for taking the time to vote. Rock with me, man. You know, definitely trying to find all the new content I can, get you guys involved going into the off season before we hit, because right now we still got some time before the draft and free agency. The NBA players are still going on. So, we're going to have some fun here for the Wizards all season, that is. So let's get into it. Deni Avdija, aka Turbo, again, also in consideration for the most valuable Wizard. Why should he be in consideration for the most improved Washington Wizard this season? Easy. He has broken out offensively. Looking at his stat line again, 14.7 points a game, up from previous season, 7.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists. He shot 50.6% from the field, including 37.4% from three. So, all right, like we all know about Deni Avdija, two big things. Number one, defensively, he came into the league as a above average, a really good defender, turned into an elite defender, in my opinion. Now, this season, he did take a step back, but he was still a really good defender. I think he was more focused on his offensive side, and it showed because he broke out offensively too. Deni has always been a confidence guy, like most players, right? When his confidence is high, you see a guy who could potentially be an all-star one day. When his confidence is low, you see a totally different player. You see a player where, he struggles. So this season, we saw renewed purpose with Deni, man. Obviously the year prior, he worked with Drew Hanlon. We didn't get the desired results as far as his shot, his offensive mechanics. It was different this season. If you look at certain components of his game, right? He attacked the basket. He attacked the basket aggressively. He definitely got better with attacking the basket, trying to get to the free throw line. And that was one area we wanted to see him kind of get better at. Now, kind of adding on to that, finishing through traffic, finishing through contact, I think he should definitely work on getting, I'm not going to say better, but continuing to get better in that area, because he did really show the area up last season. A three-point shot, I want to see more consistency. Now, the release is faster. He's less hesitant to take it. He's definitely a lot more polished from the perimeter. Definitely want to see him continue that trend, continue to be a weapon on the perimeter. Now, obviously, there's things he needs to change. No, not change, excuse me, but I guess work on. Definitely his left hand. He's a very right-hand dominant player, like most players are. Let's be real. But what kind of separates the average guy in the NBA, the average starter, the average player, even role player, to your higher echelon guys, your all-stars, is adding certain pieces to your game. Left hand is very important, man. So if you look at most of your top players, man, they definitely are very, very good with their left as opposed to just being a right-hand dominant guy. So definitely want to see him work on that. Mid-range shot, definitely, if he wants to become that 3-level scorer this season, be that 3-and-D guy, the complete player that looks like he's going to end up being. A mid-range shot is definitely a tool that he needs to add to his offensive tool bag. So, and number 3, counter moves. When you become more of a focus of the defenses or the opposing team's defense, you've got to learn counter moves. You've got to learn ways to, you know, I guess kind of keep the defense guessing, keep them on their toes, right? Counter moves are important, man. You don't want to be stagnant, as a player. You definitely want to keep the defense guessing. So those are things I want to look for, because I think that this season is very important for Deni in his development, because he got his bag. He finally broke it out offensively. He got a vote for most improved player in the NBA. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey got it, much deserved. Şengün, another good candidate to get it. So there were good candidates, but the fact that he got his vote tells you that the league is starting to notice Deni Avdija. So he should definitely be in consideration for the most improved wizard, because again, he finally took that step offensively. And it was really good to see him take that step finally, because again, when his confidence is high, when he's rolling, this is a really good player. And you can argue, a guy who could potentially develop to an all-star, in my opinion. Now, I feel the same way about several other players in the team. And that's why I'm very high on this young core here in DC of Deni Avdija, Jordan Poole, Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis. We'll see. Bilal Coulibaly, absolutely. So we have a lot of good young talent here in DC. And it was Deni Avdija's words himself who said, to the fan base pretty much was, don't think this rebuild is going to be as long as you think, because this locker room really likes what they have as far as personnel right now. Now, obviously, there's going to be more moves made, but Deni Avdija finally took that step, man. And like I said, it's been cool. And I said this about several other players as far as watching guys develop here in DC. I said about Kyle Kuzma going from a role guy in LA, coming over here and trade, and then becoming a team leader and becoming a number one scoring option. The same thing with Deni Avdija. It's been really cool watching him get drafted, especially around an uncertain time when the pandemic was in full blown, man. So he was definitely coming into the league at a very interesting time. First year you really got fans in the stands. So watching him develop from a guy who was a defensive guy who, his offense was a work in progress, to finally reaching that point, reaching that plateau. So now with Deni, man, now that we know you can do it, Turbo, now we want to see consistency. Be a consistent 15 to 20 points a night score. Being that 3-and-D guy. Being that 3-level scorer. Being that threat. On the perimeter. Driving the lane aggressively, and adding that mid-range, and being that. I think you can definitely take the next step. Now, I said in this previous video that I don't think this is a year. Several people brought up. What could his next step be? And then All-Star was brought up. I don't think this is a year for that. I think next year is. I think that he's going to finally figure it out as far as being more of a complete package next year. I think he's still got things to work on, but you're going to see him continue to work, continue to get better, continue to develop, continue to break out, and be a bona fide threat offensively, as opposed to just being a defensive guy, and really make this team that much better, because we have a lot of interesting pieces, and it all starts with players like Deni Avdija. So I definitely, again, these are big reasons why you guys should definitely consider him for the most improved wizard this year, because he definitely took that next step. If you look at his stats, man, he's gotten better every year he's been in the NBA. And even, I said this before, going back to his time in Maccabi Tel Aviv. I'm gonna pull up his stats from the previous years. Bear with me. So looking at the fact that, he's gotten better. We're gonna go all the way back to the 2019-2020 year when he was with Maccabi Tel Aviv. He did average 4 points. Next year, 4 points. But his rookie year, 2020-21, his scoring percentage went up to 6.3. Sophomore campaign, 8.4. His junior campaign, 9.2. And then this season, 14.7. So he has consistently shown that with playing time, with a high level of confidence, he has gotten better every year that he's been in the league. And he's gotten better every year he's been in Washington. Now, obviously, other factors come into play. Coaching. Did he really... Was he played to his strengths under Wes Unseld Jr.? I'm going to say no. And he wasn't the only one. Most of the roster was. Most of the roster was not played to their strengths during the Wes Unseld Jr. era. You did see, you saw the potential. You saw a glimmer of hope under interim head coach Brian Keefe. And it even goes stretches back to Scotty Brooks, who was actually the first coach that Deni played for, which, Scotty Brooks had him in the corner as a corner three-point shooter. So, you got to play, and it not just goes for Deni Avdija. You have to play these guys to strength, especially young guys. You could argue that them trying to change the game of Johnny Davis has a lot to do with him not being that player that we expected him to be at 10th overall. So that's another conversation for another time. But for those reasons, I believe that you guys should definitely consider Deni Avdija, a.k.a. Turbo, the most improved Wizard this season. But we have other candidates. Jordan Poole took his L's in the first half, but definitely came out in the second half, working his tail off and become that player that we thought he was coming up from Golden State. So we're going to talk about why he should be considered for the next most improved Wizard this season. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. So DoorDash, I mean, when you guys think of DoorDash, you think of what? Food being delivered, but there's so much more. It's not just food being delivered to your door, which they're also really, really good at. They do so much more as far as shopping. So Mother's Day is coming up. So do you guys want to make your mom smile? I know I do. Start your Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brands she loves. Delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Because I said, guys, they do more than just food. Does mom have a sweet tooth like mine? Oh, is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more. So get your Mother's Day gifts all in one place, y'all, and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order. Now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. I definitely recommend it for Mother's Day, y'all. Are you watching Fox Sports, ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? I do. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So let's get into the next candidate, and it is going to be JP13. And let me tell you, it has definitely been a roller coaster ride for JP13. But I will say this, and the reason why he's on the list, because I get it. A lot of people are going to say, "Oh, he didn't have a good complete season, so I don't think he should be in consideration." And I would agree with you. You definitely looking at when you consider somebody for most improved Wizard, you want to see the season as their body of work. And obviously, you look at Jordan Poole pretty much of half a season. When he came over from Golden State, with Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin Jr., sending Chris Paul to Golden State, a lot of people were very, very happy, and that include myself, because I knew what he could do. Looking at his body of work in Golden State, he's proven that one, he can be a walking basket, a guy who could score at a high clip, whether it's a 6-man or when he can start, because he started in the place of Stephen Curry when Stephen Curry's out, and he was a very important piece of their latest championship team. So I mean, he has shown that he can be a really high level scorer in this league. But he took his L's in the first half, and I think there's multiple reasons for that. Was a little bit Jordan Poole to a certain degree. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had to figure out who he was in DC as opposed to who he was in Golden State. Two different situations, two different levels of responsibility. He was a 6-man. He was a younger player in Golden State. You already had their leadership solidified with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. So he didn't really have much of a foot to stand on as far as being a leader. And he's still evolving as a young man. You guys forget he's 24 years old. So he's still a young man. So he had to figure out who he was in DC. And, he had his fair share of, I guess, moments where he showed bad body language. And, like I said, it's not all just on Jordan Poole. There's a lot of factors. But I think a lot of it had to do with one basic thing. He had to not only evolve, but figure out who am I as a player in DC as opposed to Golden State. Because again, with his contract and with him being a kind of a number one scoring option with Kyle Kuzma, a lot of responsibility was put on his shoulders. And, it took time for him to kind of evolve to that. Coming in at 24 years old, being, kind of to a certain degree, having your own team to a certain degree, it takes time to kind of sell into that role. And one factor happened for him, and I think this is really important to note, is interim head coach Brian Keefe became interim head coach. Nothing against Wes Unseld Jr., from a personal standpoint, I think he's a really, really nice guy. Very easy to like. But again, it's the National Basketball Association. This is a performance-driven league, like any sports league. You got to perform or you don't have a job. And you saw his struggles, and I'm not going to get into it. We've covered that already. But Brian Keefe injected renewed purpose and energy into this team. And the same goes for Jordan Poole, because, Brian Keefe put him on the 6-man role, put him on the bench, and he flourished. Now, was he happy? Most young guys ain't going to be happy, man, being demoted from starting 2-guard to the 6-man, but he took it and he flourished. His scoring prowess came back, and you start to see a different guy in the second half of the season. And then, of course, when Tyus Jones went down, he showed why he should definitely be in consideration to be the next starting point guard for the Washington Wizards. So let's look at the stat line real quick for Jordan Poole this season. And then we're going to look at previous seasons to see how he got better or got worse in certain categories. So looking at his stat line this season, he scored 17.4 points a game, 2.7 rebounds, 4.4 assists, shooting 41.3% from the field. And from 3-point, he shot 32.6%. So his numbers aren't the best numbers. But I think that it has a lot to do with his struggles in the first half. He definitely was a better player in the second half. So, I mean, the stat line is not what you expect from Jordan Poole, because, like I said, I was very high on him coming over from Golden State. And yes, I did. There was criticism on this platform by myself and my co-host, previous co-host. I hate to say that, man, Ed, man, but but for good reason, because the on-court production was lacking. And yes, his stat line for those young guys is not bad, even though his shooting percentages are really bad, in my opinion. Because, I mean, you're looking at it, the league average around, as far as field goal percentage, is usually around 45%. So 41% is not what we expect from Jordan Poole. And 3-point daggone sure ain't what I expect from Jordan Poole. He's a lot better than that. So he had his struggles. But the reason why I put him on the list as the most improved Wizards, because, again, I stress this all year long, especially in the second half of the season and into the offseason, which is to go through the amount of smoke that he went through, to go through the amount of criticism he went through, especially from your home base, from the Washington fans, and rightfully so to a certain degree, rightfully so. But not a lot of young guys could do that, could have dealt with that, and kept working and kept getting better. He said it himself in his exit interview going into the offseason that, he's built stronger than that. He definitely considers himself an old soul. And I kind of got that aura from him, from being around him, talking to him in a limited capacity. But, he took his L's. And for that reason, that he really impressed me, because I always knew that he was a good player. And I said this even when he was struggling. And if you're watching Jordan, you know that even when you were struggling, I was saying, look, he's better than that. He's got too much talent to struggle. And I don't believe he's going to be that bad. I still think he could be an all-star potential player. It's just the mental side. And that's why, I say this all the time, guys, is that we don't put enough emphasis on the mental side of sports, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever. We don't put enough emphasis on how important the mental side is. The physical side is obviously important. The athleticism. Can you jump? Can you shoot? Baseball. Are you a 5-tool guy? Can you hit for power? Can you hit for average? Football. And the list goes on, is why there's certain physical attributes in sports that are important, but the mental side doesn't get enough attention or love, and it should, because where your mind is, your body follows. And Jordan Poole is the best example of that. Is that he kept working, he kept his mind in the game, and he showed the potential why he could be not only the future point guard for the Washington Wizards going forward, but can be a potential all-star, in my opinion, because to take L's, to take criticism, to take that smoke, keep working, shows that as time went on, not only did he become better as a player, he became better as a man, in my opinion, because he's a young man and he's coming into his own, in a totally different situation in DC, and he's trying to figure out, who am I in DC? What kind of player am I? What kind of man am I in DC? And he shows that he's ready for the rigors of, being the guy, being one of the guys that you build around in DC. Because look, a lot of news came out about Bradley Beal, with his struggles, and not only in DC, but in Phoenix. And here's the thing, when you're the guy, when things go right, you get applauded. When things go wrong, it is your fault every single time. And so it takes certain types of people to be able to deal with that. So that's why I think you guys should definitely consider JP13 the most improved Washington Wizard this season, because he took his L's and he kept working. And so, like I said, was it a full season of, as far as a body of work? Not necessarily. He had his struggles early on, but his second half of the season, to me, and for most of you guys, should give you a glimpse of what can come in the future. I think that he's a high-level talent. He's a high-level scorer. he has things to work on. He has to learn how to be a franchise point guard, which is get his assist numbers up, which he did work on that. You see the vision with him. He can definitely has vision, but he needs to fine tune himself as far as being a franchise point guard, which is different than being a guy who's playing point. Being an official point guard of the team going forward, you have to look to get other people involved before you get yourself involved at times. Now, I'm not saying that you get a wide open lane, take it, man. Collapse the defense and pop it outside. Definitely wants you to get yours, but definitely, and Tyus showed that this year. Whether you're a fan or not of Tyus Jones, he showed that as a floor general, man, being a distributor first shows. It makes other people around you better. That's what I charge Jordan Poole. If you're watching JP, that's what I challenge you, man. Find ways to make everybody around you better. We know what you can do as far as your scoring prowess. We know what you can do. And you do it at a high level. Now, if you want to be that guy at point guard, especially as a franchise point guard going forward, because you're in good company. When you think of franchise point guards in DC, you think of John Wall, you think of Gilbert Arenas, man. You think of, to a certain degree, Rod Strickland. I felt like he was a good point guard. And 1 year, Russ Westbrook. So, we have a lineage of fast point guards who can definitely make their money in transition, to attack the basket, class defenses, and let the guys on the outside eat, man. And I think you have that potential to be the next great Washington Wizards point guard. So, those are reasons why I think you guys should definitely consider Jordan Poole as the most improved Wizard this season. So we got a couple more candidates in play, including a guy that came over from a midseason trade from the Denver Loadhammers, the Detroit Pistons, Marvin Bagley III. So we're going to talk about why he should definitely be in consideration for the most improved Wizard. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in one app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So we got a couple more candidates. Marvin Bagley III, we're about to get into, and Jared Butler. I mentioned at this point, I'm going to make it an honorable mention, and we might touch base into it going out of the episode. But, Corey Kispert was put on the list, but I feel like he was already that guy entering the season. So, obviously ball handling, we got better with Corey Kispert, but, I'm looking more at these four guys, but I'm definitely going to talk about it at the end. So let's get into Marvin Bagley III. Like Marvin Bagley III. Very interesting case, in my opinion, because former number 2 overall pick, and he came over from a midseason trade, sending Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari to the Detroit Pistons for Isaiah Livers and Marvin Bagley III, including second-round selections. So let's get into Marvin Bagley III. Now, there were some issues with the team when we acquired Marvin Bagley III. We had pretty much one center at the time, which was Daniel Gafford. And again, shout out to Daniel Gafford, one of my favorite Wizards, man. Definitely a guy who was definitely doing his thing in Dallas. So definitely love seeing Daniel Gafford in the playoffs. Continue to do your thing, man. But Marvin Bagley III, we were one of the worst, not only interior defensive teams, but worst rebounding teams. And combined, Marvin Bagley III combined with interim head coach Brian Keefe showed up those areas, and added, especially aspect of interior offense. Marvin Bagley III definitely provided interior defense, interior offense, high motor, his ability to stretch the floor. But don't take my word for it. Let's take a look at the stats real quick. So he averaged 11.7 points a game, 6.2 rebounds, 1.1 assists, but he did shoot 58.6% from the field. So there's definitely money in the bank. And for 3-point, shot 39.1%. So again, league average for 3-point is around 35. He shot 39. And league average for field goal percentage is around 45. He had 50. So he showed his scoring prowess, his ability to not only score in the paint, but score in the perimeter. He's got a mid-range shot. He's got a 3-point shot. Now, are we really expecting Klay Thompson type numbers out of him? I wouldn't, but he's a guy who's shown he can stretch the floor. And that is definitely something that is a breath of fresh air in DC because, between, Rashawn Holmes, Daniel Gafford, nothing against neither one of them because I'm really high on both of them, but very limited offensively, the lob threats, scoring inside, putbacks, stuff of that nature as far as offensively. And Marvin Bagley III came in and provided instant offense, instant rebounding, instant high motor. Because the biggest knock against him coming into the season was, his motor. Does he care enough? And it was something that was said about him in Detroit, Sacramento. But let's take a look at his season compared to previous seasons. So let me get into your favorite, my favorite, everybody's favorite site, Wikipedia. So looking at his stat numbers, his rookie season was 2018, 2019 in Sacramento. So looking at his stat line, he averaged around 14.9, and that is his career high, his rookie year in Sacramento. And he stayed around 14 for the next couple of years. And then 2021, when he was moved to Detroit, averaged 9, but then turned around averaged 14. So he was very consistent in what he usually does. Now, as far as points per game, he averaged around, around the same every year except for, the beginning of 2021, 2022, where it's only 9 points. Now, the certain games that I'm looking at is his percentage, field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. This season, he shot his best 3-point percentage of his career, because if you look at his rookie year, 31% from 3, and then next year 18%, next year 34, then it went down to 24, then down to only 22, then 28%, then 16, and then the last couple of years there's splits between Detroit and Sacramento. But he found his right system, his right place, his right environment to thrive. And I say this all the time, especially basketball and football, which are two sports where, player personnel really behooves your system, your fit. If you look at a lot of drafts, as far as, my football team, the Commanders, and even the Wizards, RG3 for you football fans out there. Yeah, the talent is obvious, but was he really in the right system, in the right fit? No. And it showed. It showed definitely long term, because he wasn't that guy. Injuries had a lot to do with it. But Martin, getting back to basketball, and Marvin Bagley III, he found the right system, and he found the right environment to thrive. Now, going forward, he is an expiring contract this season. This is the last year of his deal. So, in my opinion, he has built up trade value. So could it be a trade piece? We'll see, because adding the fact that we have Tristan Vukcevic and we have Rashawn Holmes with a player option. But that is another subject for another time, because why should you guys consider him the most improved? Simple as that. Because he came in DC not only as a better player for us, but a better player for himself. You saw, again, career high at 3-point percentage. You saw a guy who showed what his potential is as far as interior defense, interior offense, his motor, getting, his ability to stretch the floor from 3-point and mid-range. He fits into the mold of the modern day big. So I definitely think you guys need to consider Marvin Bagley III as the most improved Wizard, because why? He came into DC not only making us better, but he came in as a better player. And he definitely was a better player than he was in Detroit. And you saw all these glimpses in Sacramento, but again, personnel, system fit, a lot of other factors had to do with him not still being in Sacramento as opposed to being in here in DC. But he definitely came in as a better player than previous stops, and he made us a better team. So I definitely think you guys need to make or to consider or keep him in your consideration for the most improved Wizard this season. So we're gonna get into the final candidate, and like I said, I'm gonna throw in a other. You could definitely put him into your consideration as far as voting, but I compared to the other guys on the list, I don't think he has too much of a case, because he came in already really good at what he's known for, which is being that 3-level scorer, being that sniper. You can argue with Corey Kispert, but we're gonna get into it. So we're gonna get into Jared Butler, which, by the way, also earned a contract this season. So let's get into Jared Butler real quick and why he should be considered or be in consideration for the most improved Wizard this season. So let's take a look at his stat line real quick. Jared Butler out of Baylor. I was a big fan of him, but seeing him evolve as a player, very excited to see what Jared Butler can do and whether he can be that guy cemented as the backup point guard of the future. He averaged around 6.3 points a game, 1.5 rebounds, 3.2 assists, shot 48.8% from the field, and from 3-point shot 30% or 30.8%. So 3-point shot, you definitely want to see that percentage go up. And the field goal percentage is right where I want it. The assist numbers, I think, are more indicative of his role in the first half as opposed to the second half, because especially the last 10 games, if you look at his assist numbers, very impressive numbers from Jared Butler. So why should he be considered the most improved Washington Wizards this season? Well, easy. Coming over as a two-way guy who earned a contract, earned an NBA standard contract. Switching from the Capital City Go-Go to the Washington Wizards, that alone is impressive because you're going between two teams, two different schedules. And that's hard to do, man. That's like playing for the Baltimore Orioles on Saturday and then turn around and get shipped to Norfolk Tides on AAA. It's hard, man. It's a lot of travel to a certain degree. So obviously he earned that NBA standard contract. He came in, especially in the second half of the season, showed what he can do as a point guard. His assist numbers went up. You saw his vision. You saw his scoring prowess. Now, obviously, again, you want to see his three-point number percentage go up, but very impressed with Jared Butler and what he did in DC. So, like I said, the sample size is not as big as the other guys, but I definitely think he should be in consideration for the most improved Wizard because he came in, again, as a two-way contract, earning an NBA standard contract. He came in providing minutes not only for, and this is, again, is a testament to the Capital City Go-Go because they're getting a lot of these young guys ready when their name and the number is called, they're able to play meaningful minutes for the Washington Wizards. And I think that testament goes to the Capital City Go-Go and their GM, Amber Nichols. I think that it shows what they're doing a heck of a job down there with the Capital City Go-Go. So shout out to Amber Nichols and what she's been able to do. But, he's done well with both teams. Capital City Go-Go, he played well, and then he came up and he played his heart off, or heart out with the Washington Wizards. And, he, kind of like Anthony Gill's that guy where, he did all the small things. He was a hustle guy, high motor guy. So, again, I will definitely keep him in consideration. So before we roll out, y'all, let's get into Corey Kispert because should he be in consideration? Yes. But like I said, and I'm going to pull up his season-by-season stats too to kind of see where he was from season to season. But, I think that improvement with Corey Kispert is more so along the lines of the defensive side. Oh, excuse me. As opposed to the offensive side, because looking at Corey Kispert, this year he averaged 13.4 points a game, 2.8 rebounds, 2 assists, and he shot 48.6% from field goal and from three. Man, it ain't even close, man. 38.3% from three, so definitely above league average. And again, we knew what Corey can do coming into the season. I mean, he's that scorer. And I think that if you're going to talk about this season and how he evolved, he cemented himself as a 3-level scorer this season, in my opinion, because he's always been a scorer, a sniper, a guy who has the ability to cut to the basket for open looks, cut to the basket, you drive into the basket. Coming over from a program like Gonzaga, he shows because the basketball IQ is through the roof. So, there's things he needed to work on that he got better at, definitely putting the ball on the floor, putting the ball on the floor, creating for himself, creating for others. He definitely boosted his assist numbers a little bit in the second half. But from year to year, this was his junior year, his third year. So his rookie year of 2021 to 2022, he averaged 8 points a game. Second year, 11, and then 13 this year. Looking at some other numbers, his 3-point percentage was 35, 42% last year. So it did drop 4 points. But again, coming in, we knew he was that guy who could shoot from a high clip from the perimeter. His field goal percentage went down only 1 point. Now, looking at games played, games started, he played 77 his first year, 74, and 80 this year. So he played his most games this year, but he started his I guess, to only 22 games this year as opposed to 45 last year. And a lot of that has to do with, roster construction. Obviously he played a lot more on a second unit than he did with the first. So it doesn't really come down on him. It's roster construction, but he did get better every year. Now, there's areas where he regressed to a certain degree, and that's why I brought him up in the conversation, but he's always been that 3-level scorer, in my opinion. Now, going forward, what do I want to see him work on? He has worked on his defense. Now, he's not going to be a defensive stopper, but you saw a lot more effort, saw a lot more energy on the defensive side. And, he's gotten a lot of praise within the organization for, his work on the defensive side, being a better defender. Does he still have work going forward? Absolutely. And he'll be one of the first people to tell you that, he has work to do, especially on the defensive end. But so that, if you want to consider him, I don't know if I'll put him on that because I went ahead and released the vote on YouTube and Twitter. So I don't know if I put Corey Kispert on there, but if you want to consider him under other, I'll, go, knock yourself out. But, I definitely think he should be in consideration because he has gotten better, but not on the scale of Deni or Jordan Poole or Marvin Bagley III or Jared Butler. So these are your candidates, everybody. Your candidates for the most improved Wizard this season are Deni Avdija, aka Turbo, Jordan Poole, aka JP13, Marvin Bagley III, aka Bags, and Jared Butler. Also keep Corey Kispert in consideration. He didn't take the leap everybody else did because he was already really there as far as his offensive side. Most of his work is defensive side. So these are your candidates, everybody. So definitely keep these guys in your consideration for the most improved players of this season for the Washington Wizards. So we're going to go forward a little bit. I'm going to pull it up real quick for you guys. Bear with me as I pull up the list. Tomorrow, everybody, we are going to get into who was the best defender for the Washington Wizards this season. So we're probably going to see Deni on here again. Bilal's definitely going to be, but definitely rock with your boy, man, tomorrow, because we're going to get into who the candidates are for the best defender this season for the Washington Wizards. So again, I appreciate you guys, man. Looking forward to Friday. Again, this is all you guys voting. This is very minimal me. I'm just doing all the talking, but you guys are doing the voting. So all of this is you guys, man. So definitely appreciate each and every one of you guys, watchers, listeners, people who are voting online, for taking the time to vote and watch me and chop it up with me every night, man. Appreciate you guys, man. Much love. So definitely, again, look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night, talking about the best candidates for the best defender for the Washington Wizards this season. So Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and that's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts at Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So again, appreciate you guys, man. I will see you guys tomorrow night. I'm sitting up here sweating. For you guys in the DC area, man, it is hot. I live in an older house, man. So, man, in the wintertime, it gets cold up in here. And it gets hot in the summer, man. So, man, yeah. So, again, appreciate you guys, man. I will see you guys tomorrow night for the best defender for the Wizards. So, hail to the Wizards and peace. See you guys tomorrow.